to the second episode of True Print for Life. I am your co-host, Christina Vera.
And I am your co-host, Maylin Samboys.
And today we're super excited to kind of dive into a topic we've been talking about ongoing for a couple years now. We've been working on a little project, which you'll learn more about here in the next couple of months. But really diving deeper into like, who am I and who am I becoming? And it was interesting because Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Sonia Sotomayor, was quoted. She said, "It's important for all of us to appreciate where we come from and how that history has really shaped us in ways that we might not understand." So when I read that, I just instantly thought like, wow, like how many times do we try to like shy away from our past or even our upbringing?
Or hide it.
Yeah, hide it, right? Because there's something about that society has said, oh no, that doesn't fit the mold of what a successful person or woman looks like today. Yeah. And to hear Sonia say like, no, it's important to really appreciate that journey because in some shape or form, it is part of how we became who we are.
Absolutely. And I think, so there's shame, right? So when you think about shame, if you had an upbringing or a past that it wasn't colorful, right? It wasn't great. You're trying to do everything you can to forget that and not let the world know that was your past. And I think even growing up sometimes, because of the things we experience, you don't even want to talk about it because almost if you don't talk about it, like it didn't happen. And that is not true. I think as you grow and you become who you are and you accept and embrace yourself, then you can almost find gratitude for what happened to you and where you come from. So I am 100% Dominican, right? Like I love who I am. I don't know that I could pick any other country, any other family. My family, imperfect as it is, has shown me so much. The good, the bad, and the ugly has made me more compassionate. It has given me a bigger view for people. So when I hear that quote, I immediately go back to my youth years when I was like, would this be my life forever, right? And then being here now, I'm so grateful, right? I'm not saying that I'm excited about everything that happened because I'm not. There's some things that you wish didn't happen, but they happen. And there's nothing you can do about it, right? It's the past. But if you stop to think about what did that teach me? Did I learn something? And how can I use whatever that past was for now and for the future? And that's how you take power. That's how you really take the power back of not having that as a shameful thing, but having that as a powerful catalyst to take you where you need to go. Because your past is really powerful. Yeah. If you choose to see it that way.
Exactly, which kind of makes me think more about like that mindset work. Right? Like oftentimes we get so focused on, okay, whether you're graduating from college or you're building that business or, you're in the workforce and you're really focused on, climbing that lateral move. But like, how often are we stopping to do that inner work? Really working through like, how do we talk to ourselves? How are we, internalizing things? Have we really processed and let go of things that have happened in our past, whether from childhood or just a circumstance or something that you stumbled across in, your development? Sometimes we're so busy in the hustle and bustle that we're really not taking the time to do the work.
Right.
That mental work that a lot of people just skip.
Right.
Yeah.
And Oprah has a really great book out right now. I downloaded it. I'm ready to start listening to it. And it's called What Happened to You. And I think there's so much power in that because, what you usually hear when people speak to youth is what's wrong with you. And that internalizes it, right? So when something happened to you in your past, you're not thinking, what happened to me? You're thinking what was wrong with me because of the things that I experienced. And it's really what happened to you. And that book, I've seen a couple of things. I've seen a couple interviews, and that's powerful. If we start looking at our past, like, okay, it wasn't my fault, right? Or even if it was the past, right? But what happened?
Yeah.
Right? And then taking the moment to really reflect on that. As painful or not painful as it was, can you take the time to reflect on that? Because that's the only way that you can really figure out who you are. If you're so busy avoiding the past and avoiding those memories and not taking the time to learn from that, then you're going to probably make the same mistakes. You're going to repeat some cycles. right? And you're not really going to become your fully potential of who you're meant to be, because there's something in the past that made you who you are. So until you acknowledge what that is, until you embrace whatever the lessons are, right, you really can never reach your full potential, because that back there is always going to tug at you, like, but don't talk about this. And then anybody could bring that, your past, to your present, and then now it's going to take you out of whack, because you're like, oh, I'm not ready about this, right? Because you haven't even processed your own past.
Right. Yeah, the trigger is like, I mean, I've dated people in the past or have been in certain situations where something someone said I didn't even realize was a trigger for me, because I at that time hadn't taken the moment to really do that inner work, and being open and honest with myself, and then also being kind to ourselves, because, you know, really facing who you are is sometimes a very hard thing to do. But keep in mind, a bunch of people can't all be wrong about the same person. If you're noticing a similar situation, it's always like okay, at some point you have to say, okay, all these people can't be wrong about me.
Is it them or is it me?
Right.
Ask yourself the question. Is it them or is it me?
Yeah, it's so true, because it got to a point where it's just like, okay, like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person that they feel like, oh, I can't say this around her because she's going to blow up.
Right.
And I had that tendency, and I still have it in me. Like, I've had to work really hard to control her, because of how I was raised, and constantly seeing how, like, my mom had to defend herself, seeing how, you know, I've had to defend myself, even, you know, just in my interactions with my dad and just other people, you know, growing up. I constantly felt like I had to be on the defense. And then I had to wake up one day and say, Christina, you're not in that game anymore. But it took me time to realize that I was alienating people who really wanted to see me grow, and they weren't necessarily challenging me to hurt me. They were challenging me to help elevate me.
And challenging your behavior.
Yeah.
It wasn't really you. They were challenging what they were observing because they care.
Yeah.
Now, that's important, though, because I always say consider the source. I've been very big about consider the source, because something that you say to me, right? Because I think that's also something very good about having partners that are really truthful, right? Like #real is a big deal for me. I don't need you to tell me everything I'm doing is right or is beautiful, is great. No, like, tell me when I'm messing up.
Yeah.
Tell me when I say something out of line, right? You know, call me out on my stuff. Because if you don't have people like that, like, sometimes you wear something, you're not supposed to wear that. It's not because whatever the size, no, it just doesn't look good on you.
Yeah.
Right? So if your friends let you go out of the house like that, the world's looking at you this way. You don't know that it doesn't look good because maybe, I don't know, you just don't see it. So it's the same thing with your behaviors and the way you react to people. So we both had to do that for each other. Like, when I do something out of line, check me, right? As my friend, as my best friend, you have to be able to call out your friend's stuff. If I say a joke that's hurtful for anything, call me out on it. It's not cool. You know, when you behave a certain way, it's not cool.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to call each other out on your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, going back to what we were saying, but getting to a place where we understand the difference.
Right.
Now, some situations that they do require you to stand up and to defend yourself or to remove yourself from the situation. But we have to clear enough in our minds and in our spirits and our hearts to be able to have that discernment.
Right.
Of, okay, is this or is this that?
And something, when you talk about triggers, and I love that word, because when somebody says something to you and it hurts you, I had to learn to understand, why does it hurt me? Ask the question to yourself. Does it hurt me because there's truth in it? Is this a belief that I believe about myself and this person just brought it out? Or does it hurt me because it's not true and I don't know how to express myself? Like, what is it, right? Because if there's truth, then if somebody calls you out of your name, or they say that you suck at something, you're not good at something, why are you hurt? Are you really not good at that, right? Are you just something that you believe and now they made you see it, right? The world now knows. Or is it that, you know, you work really hard to make this happen, you think you're doing really good, and again, the source, is that person saying something to you because they want you to grow, they're interested in your success, or are they saying that because they're actually hateful and they're envious of you, and they don't want to watch you succeed? Watch the source. I always tell that to the girls that we mentor, and the women and the men, like, you really need to look at the source, because something like I was saying, Christina would say something to me and I know where it's coming from a good place. Now, it may hurt because if I did something not right, it may hurt, right? But I know it's coming from a good place. It's coming from a good heart, and I'm going to look at it differently than when I know someone has been continuously disrespectful, they don't have the best interest in heart for me. So when they say something, it will come to me a little bit different. And I have to look at that.
Yeah. And I think we have to clear this space to be able to receive that.
Yeah.
You know, so a part of what we've been kind of jotting down and putting into our new project is clearing space. We have to clear space in our minds and in our houses and in our spirit to be able to receive the good and the bad so that we can decide which is which. And I think we sometimes can pollute our minds and our spirits and our time with things that are not really helping us grow. And so, you know, I've had to start thinking about, like, what am I watching on a day to day? Like, there's certain movies. Now, I love a good mobster movie. Godfather, at least once a quarter, has to happen in my household. Now, why? I don't know. I just, you know, but it's also like, okay, I can't wake up to that every single day.
Right.
I have to be mindful of what I'm listening to. I had to cut back on even watching the news. I used to watch the news as part of my morning routine as I was getting dressed. And I would find that my mornings would be so like heavy when I would hear about someone who passed away or a murder or something that happened to a child, and then my whole day would be off. And then I said, okay, Christina, we have to stop watching the news. Not that I don't need to know what's informed. Now I'll do a little quick Google CNN updates just so I can get the cliff notes, but I don't need the play-by-play if it's going to create a cloud in my mind and in my productivity. And so we have to be intentional about clearing space in our lives to be able to be centered enough that we can be in tune and intact with the things that are going to really truly be beneficial and are going to help us grow.
Yeah. And like in our last episode, we talked about self-care. So for me, self-care is not watching the news. And it is because I'm a very compassionate person and I feel things, right? So I don't need to watch the news now. I know that there's things happening and I have my ways to find out that, you know, what's important, but I am not going to watch 24 hours of news because I need to be on the know, fear of missing out. I don't have that because I am trying to be part of the solution, right? And when you're just watching stuff like that, why are you watching it? Are you watching it because you want to be part of the solution? Are you watching it because this is just something that you do, right? For no purpose of watching it. And then what it does is create anxiety, right? It creates stress. So I don't believe in watching the news 24 hours. And then with all of that, it brings us back to, you know, who are we, right? So I always ask myself, and we've been doing this question often between each other, it's like, who am I? Because when you don't know who you are, anybody can come with an idea of who they believe you are. And then you may believe them because honestly, if you don't know who you are, anybody's explanation of who you are sounds really good. Right? Because you don't have one.
Yeah, especially how we project that onto our children.
Yes.
Oh, he's tall. He's going to be a basketball player. Or she's creative. Maybe she'll be an artist. And it's like, let that young person decide what he or she wants to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, same thing with our professions. Oh, you like to cook. Maybe you should be a chef. And if you don't know, like what you're saying, then how quickly can we begin to head out on a path that wasn't even designed for us?
Yeah. And then that goes with profession. It goes with who you are. So if you don't think that you're smart, if you don't know that you're capable of doing things, somebody can come to you and call you dumb, right? Or say that you're not capable of certain things. And then you believe that. So I always tell people, you know, the most important thing you need to do is figure out who you are right now. Is if you have to do any work in your lifetime, that is the best thing to figure out is who you are. Because you can never become who you're meant to be until you really realize who you are. Who you are is made out of your past, right? It's made out of your family, your DNA. All of that comes, your experiences.
Right.
That is who you are today. Now, if you look at yourself and you're like, okay, who I am is not who I want to continue to be, that is okay. Right? Because there's power in changing. Right? Who I was 10 years ago, my God, who I was 2 years ago is not who I am today. But that was a choice. When I looked at myself for who I was, I chose to change certain things because I wanted to be better. I could have chose not to do that and just stay where I was. But I chose to grow and do the work to become who I am today, 2 years later.
Yeah. And I think, you know, to add to what you're saying, really figuring out what are your core values. Like taking some time, grabbing a piece of paper or a journal. I love notebooks. I still write. I have so many notebooks in my house. They're everywhere. But it's something about pen to paper. It just makes it feel more real for me. But jotting down, 3 to 5 core values. Like at the end of the day, who are you? Like, if you had to give a personal mission statement to who you are as an individual, not as a brand, not as a CEO, not as a mom, who are you at your core? Because that to me is what circles back to how I make every single decision. The decision I'm making right now, is it in alignment with my core values? Is it truly reflective of who I am or who I strive to be? And I think sometimes that's the easiest way to say no. Actually, unfortunately, participating in this or doing that is not in alignment with my core values. So it's a no for me.
Yeah. Thank you.
But it's a no. But it's a no for me. So I think that's important, figuring out your core values, and then, finding people that are going to be in alignment with helping, to keep you accountable. So I know, like, for you and I, we're each other's accountability partner.
We are.
And I think it's important that as you're going through this inner work of figuring out who you are and who you want to become, that it's important that you have your advisory committee. Every corporation, nonprofit, any kind of business,
CEO.
There's always a group of people that sit around and just give their input. Well, what do you think about this? Well, even when they launch products, there's a group of people they hire to come and try those products before they ever hit the main market. But we're not intentional about having a core advisory group for helping us develop as individuals. And I think it's important that luckily you and I found each other in our journey. But how many individuals are out here just still like by themselves? So it's important that I would encourage you to find some individuals that you either respect, admire, utilizing resources like LinkedIn, Facebook, social media, any kind of publications that you follow, radio stations, and really looking at maybe getting 2 to 3 people that you could say, hey, would you be willing to be a personal advisory member in helping me through my growth journey?
Yeah, and cultivating that. Like in the beginning, it's going to feel a little weird because if you never had this, like I know for me in the beginning, I didn't have this. So, it just something that organically grew. Finding if you cannot find an advisor, maybe get a coach. Like we are coaches and consultants, but we truly believe in having our own consultants and coaches, right? Because like a therapist, right? If you're a therapist, you need a therapist, right? Because you have to deal and take in so much. You need someone else to help you navigate and kind of go through that. As coaches, we have mentors, we have advisory boards, because what we can give to you, what we can give to the world only comes from us taking care of ourselves and making sure we invest in ourselves.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I have a question for you, Maylin.
Oh my goodness, okay.
And I think this is a great question for you listening as well when you're kind of in that growth stage. If money, fear, timing weren't an issue, what would you be doing career-wise and why?
So that's what I'm doing right now. So I laugh when you ask me that because I feel like we're doing everything I want to do, right? Because those things are not an obstacle for me anymore. They were, right? Those things were an obstacle at one point before I realized that, I can do all of that without having those things. So every day, one of my legacies is leaving this world and every person that I come in contact with better than how I found them. And I can do that when I have $1 million and I can do that when I have $1, right? So you can do that at any time. That is my biggest thing and my legacy. So right now, who I want to become and where I'm striving to do is, to do work from a beach, right? Like think about, we love water. So we talk about owning, properties and things, in other places because that is happiness to me, is to wake up and create across the ocean, to have retreats, to have things like that. But these things to me are not an obstacle. I know there's for some people right now, and that's okay because we were there, right? We were absolutely there, not being able to do what we wanted to do because of money, because of time, because of our, restrictions. But we have worked really hard to be able to do the things that we love to do, right? And not using those things as an obstacle, right? They're actually just our catalysts to help us move forward and work harder.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that for our listeners, if you're kind of in this space of not really sure what to do next, really just sit with that question for a minute. If money, fear, and timing weren't an issue, what would you be doing and why? And the why piece, I think, is extremely important.
So
if I could
important.
highlight the why piece,
Hashtag why.
because you can't solely do things because of money.
Right. No, you can't.
Money cannot be the reason why you start a business, why you take a position. There has to be a deeper, more intentional reason behind why you choose to do something career-wise.
And the why takes time, because we've done this exercise. So Christina and I have gone through this, but we have asked each other, but why? And then we had the superficial answer, but why?
Yeah.
So you actually have to go seven levels deeper into your why. So the first 5, 6 answers are not it. You gotta go deeper, because the first you're answering that is coming from like really, the upper area of your brain is not coming from your heart. You need to figure out why, because that why is what's going to drive you when it gets really hard. That why is what's going to push you and understand, right? That is bigger than you.
Yeah.
Right? That why is what keeps us going after everybody's like, you're still doing this? Because that why, right, is so strong that it will wake us up when we don't want to wake up no more. That why is what drives us, and you need to figure out what your why is, because there will be days when you want to throw the towel. There's going to be days when people are going to come at you sideways, and you're going to question your whole existence. That why is going to be what's going to pull you out of that. It's going to help you keep moving forward.
I agree. And I think part of what we often talk about are our non-negotiables, so tying the why with your non-negotiables. In the beginning of becoming an entrepreneur, I literally worked around the clock. I would start early on in the morning, truly only pausing, to feed my infant son at the time. And before I knew it, like, the day had gone by and I didn't even really engage with my family. I was just so like thrown into my work. And, at the time, maybe I felt like that's what needed to happen, but I knew that wasn't a place that I could stay in and still be going back to my why. If I was really doing this to be able to be with my children and to be with my family, and yet I was working so much that I was still not being with my family, then I needed to reevaluate that, because my why wasn't in alignment with my actions. And so it got to a place where I started to say, you know what? I'm going to create my parameters. I'm going to create my non-negotiables for my life and how that ties into my business. So personally, I don't take meetings before 9 a.m. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a rare occasion. It has to be something super important or emergency purposes, but I do not take meetings before 9 a.m. because that is my time to be with my kids, to take them. I drive my kids to school every single day. I want to have conversations with them in the car. I want to be able to focus on prepping their lunches or whatever the case may be. My kids know that I'm present in that moment. And then after 9 o'clock, 10 a.m., I'm back. I'm back in the game. Whatever my business needs, wherever I need to be. But I have to be able to create my non-negotiables if I'm able, so I can stay who I truly am and stay to my why. Otherwise, all of this is not worth it for me.
Absolutely. And that's why, as you are, as we almost conclude this episode, I want you to think about, take a journal. I think part of our journey is journaling is so powerful. Like Christina said, that pen to paper is something else. I want you to find a journal, right, as you listen to us and you start reflecting to some of these things, right? Maybe you haven't had the time to reflect on this, or you haven't had the tools. Use this time after you listen to us, maybe 5 minutes after, and just jot down some of your aha moments from what you listen to us, right? Like what resonated with you, and then what do you need to start working on for the next week until we meet again, right? What are your non-negotiables? What is your why? Why are you doing this? And then also, is there something that's stopping you? Let us know, because we'll be happy to be a resource to you. Use us as a resource, right? We're here to motivate you, inspire you, share our journey, but also to help you get to your next level, whatever that is for you.
Absolutely. So yeah, like Maylin mentioned, take some time to think about who's part of your advisory committee. What are your core values? What's your why? What's truly your why? And what are your non-negotiables? And so put them in the comments on our YouTube channel, or feel free to email us so we can hear, what you came up with. It's always exciting for us to learn more about your personal journeys. So we thank you for listening. And until we meet again, we always want you to have a powerful week. And remember, it's bigger than you.
And that's the wrap for number 2.